Shalom everyone. I'd like to give today a practical discussion of how to apply the measurements of the Seder night. This is because last week I put out a new sefer. It's called Hidurei HaMidot on the topic of Kazayis, Revi'is, the different measurements in Halacha. And in this book we find that the measurements are actually quite smaller than the famous accepted shiurim, and especially that in the last year, this is based on both archaeological findings, having coins that Rishonim compared the different measurements to, and other findings. I will, Mitzvah Hashem, give a different video presentation of the background. Here I only want to focus on halacha l'maisa, real life practical guidance of how much one needs for the Seder night. So we'll start off with saying everything we discuss will be relating to volume and not weight, nefach and not mishkal. Volume will be defined as samak. Samak stands for centimeter me'ukav, which means cubic centimeter, or milliliter. It's all the same thing. So all that concerns us in halacha is the volume, although as we'll see we can use weight also to assist us. Let's start with matzah. We have a mitzvah on Pesach night, a mitzvah d'oraisa, to eat a Kazayis of matzah. How much is a Kazayis? Big question. We will divide the answer into three parts. We'll talk about people who want to do l'chumra v'hidur to biyotze all the shitos. That's number one. Number two, we'll talk about people who want to know what they need to do the din. And then we'll give number three for people who have difficulty, shasad chak, and are not able to do the second measurement. Okay, so let's start with people who want to do l'chumra v'hidur. They're young, capable, mehader. They want to biyotze everything, and the truth is that this is once a year mitzvah d'oraisa of eating. So we want to take advantage and biyotze everything. So the shear, according to this big size, would be 47 samak. That would be the Mishnah Brura's shear. This would be something approximately the size of a whole machine matzah. Even if you don't eat machine matzahs, you eat hand matzahs, but we're talking about something the approximate size of a whole machine matzah. The Stipler, according to this shita, actually gave something a little bit less, something closer to 2/3 of a machine matzah, and in between 2/3 and a whole machine matzah, this would be like l'chumra v'hidur to biyotze all the shitas. However, someone wants to know, what is the halacha? What do I need to eat? What is the proper shear to be fulfilling this mitzvah? So, in the sefer I explained that really 17 samak is sufficient. How much is that in real life? It's approximately this size of a matzah. Okay, how do I figure that out? I just take a ruler and measuring the size of the length and width is pretty easy. In this specific piece, I'm going in centimeters, it's close to 19 is the length, and the width is a little bit more than 6, and you can make the math. Now the thing that really we need to clarify is the thickness. From what I've seen, matzahs range in thickness from standard, which is 2 millimeters thick, that's the same thickness as a shekel coin, to 1.5 millimeters thick, which is the thickness of a 10 agarot coin. Of course, it could be a little thicker, somewhere in between, or maybe even thinner than a 10 agarot coin, and a person needs to have an approximate assessment of what kind of matzah he has. If it's like these paper thin matzahs, then the size is going to need to be bigger. But if we're talking about a standard matzah, so now if we take something approximately this size, what we're aiming for is 17 samak. So if we measure this piece of matzah that I have here, so it's approximately 19 centimeters the length, and the width is approximately 6 in its thinnest part. So 19 times 6 is 114. Now, if the thickness is 0.2 millimeters, so it comes out 22 samak. And even if the thickness is 0.15, which is a pretty thin matzah, it comes out 17 samak. So if you have a piece of matzah this size, you're fine, you're good. You fulfilled the mitzvah d'oraisa according to the overwhelming majority of the poskim, and there's no problem with that. Kasher lechatchila. And this is even by a relatively thin matzah. Again, the paper thin matzahs may need more. Now, what about someone that has a problem even having this? This certainly is the shir lechatchila, but if we want to take a matzah the size of today's olive, which is sometimes people need to because they have a problem eating more. So if you take a matzah which is this size, this is 6 by 6 centimeters approximately, that's enough. You know, if you want to see how small this is, here's a credit card. It's like basically just a tad more than the width of a credit card. And if you take a matzah this size, it's the size of today's olive. If it looks like a small piece of matzah, that's because an olive is small. And this is really enough. And if need be, b'shas adchak, this also can be sufficient for the mitzvah. Soon we'll see that this can be a useful shir for everyone. Okay, so we've discussed the 3 different levels of fulfilling the mitzvah d'oraisa. Now, for the first eating, the motzi matzah, it says in Shulchan Aruch to have 2 kazayisim. However, that does not add anything on the shiurim we've just discussed. Why is that? Because if you want to go for the chumrah and hidur, if you want to take a whole machine matzah, so then it's already twice as big as 2 matzahs, which is me'ikar hadin. Me'ikar, you don't need to be machmer more than that. And the truth is, even if you have just this Kazayis, it's already more than twice as much as a Kazayis, which is the size of an olive. So whichever one Kazayis you're going for, that already includes the size measurement of 2 Kazayisim of Me'ikar Hadin, and therefore you don't need to have more than that. Okay, that takes care of the mitzvah d'oraisa of eating matzah. Now, moving along, we have now the next mitzvah is maror. Maror, there's also a mitzvah to have a kazayis. How much is that? So, first of all, maror, it's better to take romaine lettuce rather than horseradish. It is preferable in the order of halacha, as well as that it's not so sharp and difficult. For my measurements, a big leaf, the outer leaf of a romaine lettuce, has comfortably 17 samak. And that is sufficient for the mitzvah. That's how much the Chazon Ish actually used to give out for maror. Although, if those who want to do chumrah v'hidur can go for 1.5 leaves, which would give them 25 samak, which would be the Mishnah Berurah's shir, who compares it to egg with its shell. But al pi halacha, 17 samak is enough. So we've done matzah, maror, now korech. Korech needs to be a kazayis matzah and a kazayis maror. If you're able to, so make the kazayis 17 samak and of matzah 17 samak of maror. But since korech is only a zecher lamikdash, you can even do a smaller. What the stipler used to do, he used to take the size of an olive of today. We're not talking about someone who's sick or difficult. A zecher lamikdash could be done with a kazayis of matzah, which is this size, And a Kazayis of Maror, I didn't actually measure, but it's perhaps like up to here or something like that. You know, something that would seem to be the size of today's olive. I'm sure half of this leaf would be sufficient. Moving along to afikomen. Afikomen, according to some poskim, this is when we fulfill the mitzvah d'oraisa, Rashi and Rashbam. And therefore, if you want to do chumrah v'hidur, you would take 25 samak, which would be perhaps 1.5 times as big as this, but al pi halacha, and this is what the Chazon Ish did, and this is what many poskim did, and this is what you could do mamish lechatchila. You could take 17 samak, which is this size matzah, and that's good enough. In addition, the Mishnah Brura brings that you should have 2 kazesim of matzah for afikomen. It's not brought down in the Rambam Torah and Shulchan Aruch, but the Mishnah Brura brings some achronim recommend that. However, for that, as far as that's concerned, we can have 2 pieces that are the size of an actual olive. Therefore, when you have a piece of 17 samak, it's already more than twice the size of an olive, and therefore this is enough. Someone who finds even this as difficult can, for afikomen, be somech on eating a piece of matzah, which is the size of an actual olive. I would like to just add regarding weight. The halacha doesn't define a kazayis in weight, only in volume. Nevertheless, if we know the specific gravity of any given food, we can give it in volume also. The whole machine matzah would be about 26 grams, but someone who wants to have the actual piece of matzah of 17 samak, 11 grams is certainly 11 grams is more than enough. 11 grams of matzah, and someone who wants to know the size of a matzah, the size of an olive, we're talking about something approximately 3 grams. Okay, what do we have left now? The arba kosos. The arba kosos, the 4 cups of grape juice or wine. Okay, so we have 2 shiurim. There's the shir Chazon Ish, which is 150 samak, and we have the shir of Reb Chaim Nah, which is smaller. The famous shir of Reb Chaim Nah is 86 samak. However, in my sefer, I explained why actually 75 is sufficient. I put it in baby bottles here to show that this is a convenient way that everyone can measure, because baby bottles are common. Now, how much is this in real life? If we take the 150 samak into a cup, would be this much. 75 samak would be this much. If you'd like to see it in more Seder-oriented cups, this is 75, and this is 150. Now, what do we do with these shiurim? So it goes like this. When the Seder night is on Liel Shabbos, as it is in this year, the Mishnah Brura recommends that the first cup should be the big shir. For the person who makes kiddush, not everyone who hears it doesn't need this, only the person who makes kiddush. It's also lechatchila and not obligatory. But what everyone needs to have, for what everyone else needs to have, plus for the other 3 kosos for everyone, would be a cup that has 75 samak. It is this amount. Now, it's proper to drink a rov kos, a majority of the cup, and therefore, those who want to have a smaller shir should take a small cup. Just measure that your cup has 75 samak, or tad more than 2.5 ounces in American volume, and once you have that, then you're good to go. And that's it's an exceedingly small cup, but it's good enough. Kasha lechatchila, and if you have that amount, then fill up that cup. It's easy to drink. It's good. You could put in, by the way, wine, And if you don't find wine pleasant, you can dilute it with as much grape juice as you want in order to be pleasant, because we want to be bnei chorin, we want to drink derech cherus, and it should be in a way that is pleasant and enjoyable for us. Therefore, diluting it to be pleasant is kasher lechatchila. Wishing you all a chag kasher v'sameach.